Everyone, I'm Robyn and I'm a curator in the insect collection at the Natural History Museum in London. Today I'm going to talk briefly about my experience collaborating with museum studies students over the past couple of years. I've worked with 3 museum studies students from UCL in that time. This year's placement is still ongoing, so I'll use last year's placement as a case study to show you how it worked and what came from it. So the UCL Museum Studies MA requires students to complete a minimum of 20 days of supervised work in a museum as a compulsory assessed part of their degree. It can relate to any aspect of museum work. It doesn't just have to be curatorial. It usually takes place 1 or 2 days a week and can be done either fully in person or as a combination of remote working and in-person working. Students prepare and present an assessed poster about their placement, and importantly, the placement is separate from their dissertation. Onto the project itself. The task was to incorporate a newly acquired collection of UK moths and butterflies into the museum's main collection. When it arrived, the material was housed in non-conservation grade drawers and was uncatalogued, making the specimens inaccessible. The project was designed to be self-contained so the students could take ownership of it. There was a clear workflow which involved essential collections management tasks such as adding acquisition numbers to each specimen, checking and recording identifications, incorporating the material into the correct drawers, and recording the specimen's final location within the main collection. In total, 2 students, Maria and Poppy, documented and incorporated 3,260 specimens into the main collection in just 29 working days, making a previously inaccessible collection available to the research community. One of the biggest positives for me was how little admin was involved in getting the placement started. I provided a short project summary to the course organisers, and there are a couple of calls throughout the year, so I would recommend advertising and starting the placement early, as last year Poppy and Maria started in May, so had to juggle the placement with writing their dissertations in the late summer. Whereas this year, my current student David, who started in February, has already completed over half of his required days. I received several applications in the form of CVs and cover letters, which I had to sift through. This was the tricky part, as I had deliberately kept the criteria open. I wasn't expecting loads of experience. I was happy to provide the necessary training, and I wasn't especially concerned about academic background, which did make shortlisting hard as there wasn't much to score against. In the end, I mainly looked for enthusiasm. I held short informal Zoom chats with the shortlisted students, and these were very informal, more a chance to understand what they wanted from the placement and whether our expectations aligned. I offered placements to 2 students last year and 1 this year. The pros of having 2 students at once is that the output is higher for roughly the same training effort, and they can support each other as they learn. But it does require more ongoing availability from you, so that's something to consider. For me, 1 student, 1 day a week works best. Before the placement began, I also completed a risk assessment and health and safety paperwork for UCL. The outcomes for the museum are very clear. Thousands of specimens were rehoused and catalogued, which is a significant gain for the collection. For the students, they took ownership of a real collections management project and gained experience working in a large national collection. They also developed transferable skills such as working with the collections management system and carrying out IPM checks. It's worth noting that none of the students I've worked with have a background in natural history. Their experience is primarily rooted in material culture. Although the specimens had been identified, some names were out of date and a few were incorrect. With support from colleagues, I provided basic training in taxonomy and nomenclature and how to use checklists and ID guides. That was enough for them to work largely independently. It was actually surprising how little insect-specific training they required, but I think this highlights how transferable collections management skills are across the heritage sector and how open-minded I think we should be when it comes to recruitment specifications. The students already understood metadata, access principles, and documentation requirements, so they were able to quickly pick up what they needed to complete the project. Their attention to detail, enthusiasm, and commitment to improving access were far more important than subject-specific expertise alone. So to wrap up, working with museum students offers high impact with relatively low effort, and I can't recommend it enough. I'll finish by pointing you towards some of the museum studies placement opportunities available to you, including the contact details of the UCL programme. I'm saying a huge thank you to Poppy Mills, Maria Dragoy, and David Guthrie for all their brilliant work in the collection, and to you for taking the time to listen. Thanks.